Let me take you back to a small town called Leonard Bridge, Connecticut. That's where a boy named Max Rosenbloom was born. A kid who'd go on to become one of the most unusual and unforgettable boxers the world has ever seen. He wasn't built like a tank. He didn't knock people out cold. In fact, he didn't even punch the way most boxers did. Max had a style all his own. Fast hands, open gloves, quick feet, and a brain that was always a step ahead. A journalist once saw the way Max slapped his way through a fight and gave him a nickname that stuck for life: Slapsy Maxie. And boy, did that name fit. Max didn't just fight, he danced. He moved like a man who could see the punches coming before they were even thrown. His fights were less about brute force and more like puzzles. He'd dodge, duck, slip, and slide, frustrating opponents until the final bell rang. He didn't always win with power, but he won with smarts. But behind that clever style was a cost. Fight after fight, round after round, Max took countless shots to the head. He didn't go down easy, but he took the hits, thousands of them over the years. And slowly, the damage began to show. His movements became stiff. His coordination faded. The same brain that once let him dance around punches was now struggling just to keep his body steady. Still, Max's influence went far beyond the ring. One day, a young man named Cuz D'Amato was watching Max fight, and something clicked. He saw in Max a different kind of genius, the art of not getting hit. The way Max could sense danger and slide away from it, like he had built-in radar. That single spark lit a fire in Cuz's mind. He became obsessed with the idea of creating a new kind of fighter, one who would blend Max's defensive wizardry with speed and explosive power. From that vision, the Peekaboo style was born. So even as Max's own body began to fade, his legacy lived on in the hands of future champions trained under Cuz. Fighters who learned how to protect themselves, how to strike fast and disappear even faster, all thanks to the lessons learned from watching a man named Slapsy Maxie Rosenbloom. He wasn't a wrecking machine. He wasn't knockout king. But in the art of survival, in the magic of movement, Max was a master. And though he paid the price with his health, his name still echoes in the corners of boxing history, where footwork, timing, and pure instinct matter just as much as power. The stage was set on June 25th, 1930, for what would become one of the most defining nights in Max Rosenbloom's career. The lights at Bison Stadium in Buffalo were shining down on the ring, and the crowd buzzed with anticipation. It wasn't just any fight. It was for the undisputed light heavyweight title. Max, already known for his elusive and tricky style, was about to face off against the reigning NYSAC champion, Jimmy Slattery. Slattery was tough, the kind of fighter who could hit like a freight train, but he had never met anyone like Max Rosenbloom. However, had been waiting for a night like this. It wasn't just about the belts. It was about proving once and for all that brains could beat brawn. With both men ranked number 1 and 2 in the world, the stakes were higher than ever. Slattery might have been the champ, but Max wasn't about to back down. The fight raged on, punches flying, crowd roaring. But in the end, it was Slapsy Maxie who came out on top, clinching the NYSAC title and the vacant Ring Magazine light heavyweight belt in a battle that would become a legend. For a brief moment, he was the undisputed champion of the world, a title he would hold fiercely in his hands. But Rosenbloom's reign wasn't a smooth, uninterrupted ride. It was a turbulent one. Just 3 days after the victory, in September 1930, he had a setback. The National Boxing Association, NBA, decided to strip him of his title due to a technicality. It seemed like Max had a habit of upsetting the establishment. Despite this, the boxing world recognized his skill, and he kept defending his NYSAC and ring titles, proving again and again that he was a force to be reckoned with. Then came the night on March 24th, 1933, in the electric atmosphere of Madison Square Garden. Rosenbloom faced off against Bob Godwin, and as usual, Max made it look easy. He sliced through Godwin's defenses, dominating the fight until he finished in the 4th round with a brutal technical knockout. He stood tall again, the king of the light heavyweight division, holding the NYSAC and ring titles with pride. But it wouldn't last. In the world of boxing, the powers that be didn't always love Max's style. His slapping and flicking tactics, which many saw as genius, were viewed as unconventional and even unethical by the NBA. It didn't take long for the officials to take action. On September 17, 1934, at the NBA's annual meeting, Max was stripped again, not for losing a fight, but because of his unorthodox way of boxing. The delegates ruled that his technique violated the so-called laws of boxing in their eyes. It was a bitter pill for Max, who had always fought to his own rhythm. But despite the setbacks, he remained a champion in the eyes of many. His defensive brilliance and unpredictable movement had rewritten the book on how a boxer could win without always landing the hardest punches. Though Max's time as the undisputed champ was short, he left a mark on the sport that no one would forget. He wasn't just a title holder, he was a trailblazer. And while the boxing authorities might have tried to take his belts away, they couldn't strip away his legacy. Max Rosenbloom had carved out a place in boxing history, not just as a champion, but as a genius of the ring. By 1937, Maxie Rosenbloom was already a legend in the ring, but he was beginning to feel the wear and tear. The punches had slowed him down, and the crowd's roar, once his heartbeat, started to fade into the background. He wasn't done just yet, but he could see the end coming. Then, out of nowhere, Hollywood came calling. Someone handed Max a movie script, not to play a polished hero, not to play a villain, but to be something he knew well, a big-hearted, slightly clumsy, funny guy. Max didn't hesitate. He stepped out of the ring and onto the silver screen. And just like that, the world met a new Maxie Rosenbloom. His first big role, a film called Each Dawn I Die, alongside the legendary James Cagney and George Raft. Max played it just right, big and goofy, but lovable. Audiences ate it up. Hollywood had found something special, a real-life bruiser with a golden sense of humor. He kept the hits coming, not in the ring, but on screens. Film after film, radio spots, TV appearances. He played characters who were punch-drunk, sure, but never pitiful. Max brought warmth to every role, like a man who'd taken life's hits and learned how to laugh through them. Then came 1950. Director Jules White, known for wild slapstick, had an idea. Pair Maxie up with another former ring warrior, Max Bear, the former heavyweight champion. The two Maxes became a comedy duo for a string of short films. They stumbled, bumbled, and cracked each other up across movie screens across the country. These weren't just skits. They were echoes of two fighters who'd survived the sport and found something better, joy. By 1955, Max was in Abbott and Costello Meet the Keystone Cops. His screen time wasn't huge, but when he appeared, people smiled. They remembered the fighter, but now they loved the performer. But Max saved his most powerful performance for television, in Rod Serling's Requiem for a Heavyweight, the first ever 90-minute TV drama. Max didn't just act. He opened up. He played an aging ex-boxer who sits in a dingy bar, night after night, telling the same stories to the same washed-up crowd. His voice trembled with truth, because that character wasn't just a role. It was a glimpse into what Max himself feared, a life stuck in the past, chasing echoes of a bell that stopped ringing long ago. It was heartbreak on screen, and Max nailed it. He wasn't pretending. He knew that story. He'd lived it. But Max didn't let his story end in that bar. While the ring had taken its toll, he kept moving forward. He opened a nightclub, Slapsy Maxie's. The place became a hot spot, pulsing with music, laughter, and energy. Celebrities came and went, and the club itself became legend. First in San Francisco, then moving to Beverly Boulevard in Los Angeles, Slapsy Maxie's was more than just a venue. It was a symbol that Rosenbloom had done what many fighters couldn't. He found life after the gloves. Even decades later, Hollywood couldn't forget him. In 2013, his club was featured in Gangster Squad, a nod to the man who had lived so many lives. Champion, actor, comedian, survivor. Maxie Rosenbloom never followed the script. Not in the ring, not in life. He danced to his own rhythm, took punches no one saw coming, and somehow always found a way to keep the crowd cheering. On March 6, 1976, the final bell rang for Slapsy Maxie Rosenbloom. He was 69 years old when he passed away at the Braywood Convalescent Hospital in South Pasadena, California, after battling Paget's disease of the bone, a painful and cruel condition that slowly broke down the same body that once danced, dodged, and dazzled inside the ring. He was laid to rest at Valhalla Memorial Park Cemetery in North Hollywood, a fitting place for a man who lived like a warrior and performed like a star. And maybe that's the best way to remember Maxie. He wasn't just a boxer. He wasn't just a comedian or an actor or a club owner. He was a survivor, a man who turned the bruises life gave him in his stories into laughter, into legend. Slapsy Maxie might have fought in a time long gone, but his spirit never left. You can still feel it in every fighter who slips a punch instead of throwing one, in every underdog who refuses to be counted out, in every person who takes the pain and turns it into something unforgettable. Maxie Rosenbloom didn't just leave behind a record. He left behind a legacy, one that lives on, in stories, in silver screens, and in the hearts of those who know that champions don't always come out swinging. Sometimes they come out smiling.